The art of self-mastery is more than just a philosophy. It is a lifelong discipline, a path carved through the chaos of our daily lives, leading toward peace, resilience, and personal power. At its core, it is not about dominating the external world, but about understanding and mastering the internal landscape, our thoughts, our emotions, and our reactions. The battle is not fought with fists or weapons, but with awareness, clarity, discipline, and conscious action. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, stormy winds beating against your chest, your mind screaming for shelter, but your heart remaining calm. That is self-mastery. It's the ability to remain still when everything inside you wants to run. It is standing strong in the face of temptation, anger, fear, or uncertainty, and choosing the higher path over and over again. One of the most powerful and engaging teachings of this discipline comes not from ancient scrolls or theoretical debates, but from observing nature and human behavior in its rawest form. Fire rages, yet it burns out. The wind howls, yet it passes. Thoughts too come and go. Emotions rise like waves, but they eventually settle. So why do we, as humans, cling to them as if they define us? The art of self-mastery is the realization that we are not our thoughts, not our fears, not our desires, but the observer behind them. When we recognize this, we begin to reclaim our power. We begin to shift from reaction to response, from chaos to control, from weakness to strength. One of the most engaging truths of this philosophy is this: true power lies not in what you can control outside of you, but in how deeply you can know and master what lies within. We often look for strength in status, possessions, or validation. But what happens when these are stripped away? Who are we when the noise stops, when we are left alone with our raw, unfiltered self? That moment, when you meet yourself in silence and choose to grow, is where self-mastery begins. It is an art, not a science, a process, not a goal, a devotion, not a performance. In this speech, we will walk through 3 essential pillars of self-mastery. Each one is a stepping stone to elevate the spirit, sharpen the mind, and strengthen the will. Each one is timeless, drawn from wisdom rooted in centuries of contemplative practice and inner training. These are not lessons to merely be heard. They are practices to be lived, internalized, and embodied every single day. Key points: just names. 1. Awareness as the first weapon. 2. Discipline over emotion. 3. Consistency in chaos. Speech body will follow after this on your next instruction, if needed. Conclusion. 5. 100 words. The journey toward self-mastery is not a straight line. It twists, it tests, it breaks you before it builds you, but in every setback, in every quiet moment of resistance, lies the greatest opportunity for transformation. This path is not meant for the passive. It is for those who are willing to look in the mirror, not to perfect the image, but to understand the reflection. True self-mastery begins when you stop blaming the world and start taking responsibility for your reactions, your patterns, and your choices. That's when you stop being the victim and start becoming the master of your life. Understand this deeply. You are not broken. The noise in your mind, the fear in your heart, the habits that hold you back, these are not you. They are shadows, echoes, conditioning. You are the awareness that watches all of it unfold. You are the stillness beneath the storm, the silence behind the noise. And from this place of inner clarity, you begin to make better choices, not because someone is watching, but because it aligns with the higher self you are committed to becoming. Self-mastery does not mean perfection. It means progress with purpose. It means showing up when you don't feel like it. It means sitting in discomfort until it dissolves. It means choosing patience over impulsivity, presence over distraction, and courage over convenience. These are the small, invisible victories that build the foundation of an unshakable spirit. In time, self-mastery becomes your nature, not because you forced yourself, but because you trained yourself. It becomes the way you walk, the way you breathe, the way you lead, love, and live. Every challenge becomes a lesson, every moment a meditation. Remember this: the world outside will always remain uncertain. People will betray, circumstances will change, time will test. But if your inner world is strong, steady, and anchored in mastery, no storm can truly move you. You will remain centered, unshaken, awake, and powerful. Let this not be just a speech. Let it be a call to action. A reminder that your greatest potential lies not in doing more, but in becoming more conscious, more disciplined, more rooted in your truth. Begin where you are, observe your mind, train your body, discipline your habits, and above all, protect your peace. This is the real work. This is the warrior's path. This is the art of self-mastery. The first and most fundamental pillar on the path to self-mastery is awareness. Pure, unfiltered, relentless awareness. It is not a tool, it is a weapon. And in the hands of someone who trains with it, it becomes sharper than any blade, more powerful than any physical strength. Awareness is the light that exposes the shadows within. Without it, there can be no clarity, no transformation, no freedom. Most people live in a state of unconscious momentum. They are pulled by emotions, habits, memories, and fears, reacting to life rather than consciously responding. They confuse their thoughts for truth, their emotions for reality, and their moods for identity. But a person who commits to mastering themselves learns to step back from this flow. They learn to witness without judgment. They learn to observe even the smallest flicker of thought, as if watching clouds pass through the sky. This is awareness in its most powerful form, not intellectual, not analytical, but present. To develop self-mastery, you must begin by noticing. Noticing the way your thoughts rise and fall. Noticing how your breath changes when you're anxious. Noticing how your body tenses in certain situations. Every moment is an opportunity to witness yourself. And the more you witness, the more you begin to understand the mechanisms that run your life. Why did you get angry in that moment? Why did you shrink back when you wanted to speak? Why do you seek approval from those who never understood you in the first place? These are not just random patterns. They are learned, wired into your nervous system through repetition and trauma. But awareness can begin to dismantle them. With awareness, you stop being a prisoner to your conditioning and start becoming the architect of your response. In this process, meditation becomes a vital discipline, not for relaxation, but for revelation. Sitting in stillness, you learn to watch your mind as if it were not yours. You see the chaos. You see the craving. You see the restlessness, and most importantly, you see that these things are not who you are. The more deeply you observe, the more distance you create between yourself and your thoughts. That distance is your power. It allows choice. It gives you space to act consciously rather than react blindly. Awareness must also extend to the body. The body holds every suppressed emotion, every unresolved memory, every unprocessed pain. Most people live disembodied lives. They are numb or distracted, always escaping into their heads or devices. But true self-mastery requires embodiment. It demands that you feel everything, the tension in your jaw when you lie, the tightness in your chest when you suppress truth, the fire in your belly when you're about to do something courageous. These sensations are not distractions. They are signals guiding you toward deeper understanding. Awareness is also the only antidote to emotional reactivity. When you are unaware, anger owns you, fear controls you, lust pulls you, jealousy poisons you. But when you are aware, these emotions may still arise, yet you become the observer. You can feel anger rising in your chest, but you do not act on it blindly. You can feel fear trying to grip you, but you do not run away. Instead, you breathe, you sit, you look into it, you ask what it's trying to teach you. This practice requires radical honesty. You must be willing to look at the ugliest parts of yourself without turning away. Your ego will try to protect you. It will tell you stories to justify your behavior. It will blame others. It will create illusions to avoid discomfort. But awareness shatters all of that. It brings you face to face with your own mind, your own patterns, your own flaws. It is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. One of the greatest realizations you can have on this journey is this: you are not your thoughts. This is not a motivational quote. It is a fundamental truth. Your thoughts' discipline over emotion is the invisible thread that holds the fabric of self-mastery together. Without it, awareness becomes fleeting, intentions dissolve, and transformation remains a distant dream. Discipline is not about suppressing emotion or denying the richness of our inner world. It is about choosing to act with clarity despite the waves of feeling that rise and fall within us. It is about putting conscious choice above impulsive reaction, about deciding who you want to be and then consistently honoring that decision, regardless of how you feel in the moment. Emotions are powerful. They color our perception, fuel our decisions, and shape our relationships. But they are also unstable. Joy can turn to sadness in a second. Confidence can give way to fear with a single comment. What you feel today may not be what you feel tomorrow. If you build your identity or your choices solely on emotion, you build on shifting sand. The one who seeks mastery understands this. They respect emotion but do not bow to it. They feel deeply, but they act deliberately. That is the true essence of discipline. When you train discipline over emotion, you begin to take full ownership of your actions. You no longer say things like, "I couldn't help it," or "it just happened." Those are the words of someone enslaved to their emotional state. But you, as a practitioner of mastery, begin to pause before speaking, breathe before reacting, reflect before deciding. You don't deny anger, you contain it. You don't suppress fear, you move forward with it. You don't chase happiness, you choose purpose. This ability to hold steady in the storm is the sign of real power. Discipline begins with small, invisible choices: waking up when your alarm goes off, sitting in silence when your mind craves stimulation, eating what fuels your body, not what comforts your cravings, speaking truth when your ego wants to manipulate. These decisions may seem trivial in the moment, but they are the building blocks of a solid foundation. Every time you choose action over excuse, principle over pleasure, growth over comfort, you wire strength into your being. You tell your nervous system, "I am not ruled by emotion, I am ruled by purpose." The truth is, emotions often arise to protect us or signal something, but they are not always right. Fear often lies, anger often exaggerates, desire often distracts. You must learn to hear your emotions without obeying them blindly. Like messengers, they bring information, but it is your disciplined mind that must interpret that message wisely and choose the right path. This inner counsel, where emotion speaks but discipline decides, is where real transformation begins. Discipline over emotion is especially tested in moments of conflict, temptation, and doubt. It's easy to be centered when everything flows smoothly. But what about when someone disrespects you? What about when the urge to procrastinate is strong? What about when your plans fall apart or when you're overwhelmed by insecurity? These are the battlegrounds where discipline either rises or crumbles, and you must choose again and again to act not based on fleeting feelings, but based on the vision of the person you are committed to becoming. There's an ancient saying, "You are not what you feel, you are what you do consistently." This speaks to the very heart of this principle. You may feel unmotivated, but you train anyway. You may feel tired, but you keep your promises. You may feel afraid, but you walk forward. These moments of discipline are not glamorous. They are not dramatic, but they are the quiet victories that lead to mastery. Emotion wants instant gratification. Discipline chooses delayed reward. Emotion wants escape. Discipline chooses presence. Emotion seeks comfort. Discipline walks into discomfort willingly, knowing it is the only path to true strength. When you make discipline your compass, you become immune to the chaos of mood swings and the traps of external validation. You no longer chase fleeting highs. You root yourself in lasting value. But discipline is not about rigidity. It is not harsh self-punishment. It is not forcing yourself to become a machine. True discipline has compassion. It knows the difference between an excuse and a real need for rest. It knows when to push and when to pause. It's not about being unfeeling. It's about not being led by feeling. Discipline allows space for emotion, but always returns to center. That's the difference between emotional chaos and emotional intelligence. And make no mistake, this is not easy. There will be days when you feel empty, defeated, frustrated. There will be moments when you want to quit, to indulge, to lash out. But those are the precise moments where growth happens. They are not signs of weakness. They are invitations to choose differently. And with every conscious choice, no matter how small, you sharpen the edge of your discipline. You carve a deeper groove in your mind, one that says, I am in control, I decide. People often admire the results of self-discipline, confidence, presence, calm, power, but they rarely see the sacrifices behind it. They don't see the daily choices, the repeated discomfort, the moments when you chose what was hard but right. But those sacrifices are sacred. They are your offering to your higher self, and in time, those choices become habits, and those habits become identity. What begins as discipline eventually becomes your nature. At first, you must force yourself to act despite emotion. But over time, your nervous system adapts. Your emotional impulses weaken, and your disciplined responses strengthen. Eventually, you no longer have to fight the temptation. You simply no longer resonate with it. That is the beauty of discipline. It doesn't just control emotion, it transforms it. You must also understand that discipline is a form of self-love. It is not denial, it is protection. It is saying, I respect myself too much to act on impulse. I value my growth too much to be distracted. I honor my vision too much to betray it for comfort. This kind of love is fierce. It doesn't coddle. It holds you accountable, and it asks you every day, are you acting in alignment with your highest self, or are you letting your emotions write the story? Every emotion is temporary. Every disciplined action is permanent. One fades, the other builds, and when the emotional storm passes, as it always does, you will be left with the consequences of your action. Will they be steps forward or regrets? Discipline ensures they are progress. So the next time you feel the pull of emotion trying to dictate your behavior, pause, breathe, remember your purpose, ask yourself, what does my highest self do right now? Then do that, no matter what your emotion tells you. That is the mark of mastery. That is the embodiment of discipline over emotion. It is not a punishment, it is a liberation, because in the end, when you are no longer a slave to your inner storms, you become the calm in the center of the hurricane. The eye of the storm, the one who walks forward while others fall apart, the one who leads, who creates, who transforms, not because they don't feel, but because they choose not to be ruled by what they feel. That is the path, that is the practice, and that is what it means to master yourself. Consistency in chaos is what separates the amateur from the master, the curious seeker from the disciplined practitioner. It is the most overlooked element of self-mastery because it is the least glamorous. It's not about how powerful you feel in a moment of motivation. It's about what you do when the motivation disappears. When everything is falling apart around you, when your plans collapse, when you feel lost, tired, and uninspired, that's when consistency shows its real face. It is quiet, steady, relentless. It is the anchor that holds you in place when the storms of life try to wash you away. Anyone can train when it's easy. Anyone can speak wisdom when they're calm. Anyone can show up strong when things go according to plan. But life rarely respects our timing. It throws curveballs. It blindsides us with loss, betrayal, illness, doubt, distraction, uncertainty. Chaos is not an exception in life, it's a guarantee. So if your growth depends on ideal conditions, you are not committed to mastery. You are addicted to comfort. Real mastery asks something different. It asks you to show up especially when it's hard. It asks for consistency not just in action, but in attitude, intention, and energy. It demands that you maintain your rhythm in the middle of the noise. That you continue your practices, your training, your self-reflection, your alignment with values, even when your external world is in disarray. That is strength, that is discipline matured into presence. Consistency in chaos is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about staying grounded while acknowledging the storm. It's not detachment or numbness, it's stability. It's choosing to respond with clarity even when your mind is screaming in confusion. It's the refusal to let circumstances dictate your direction. It's the quiet commitment to progress, even if progress means moving an inch today when yesterday you could leap. To live this principle, you must learn to trust the process more than the result. Sometimes your practice will feel hollow. Your mind will say, "What's the point?" You'll feel like you're going through the motions, but that's where consistency reveals its hidden power. Even when it doesn't feel like it, the repetition is carving a groove in your identity. You are becoming someone who shows up regardless, and that identity is unshakable. Consistency becomes a lifeline when your emotions betray you, when doubt creeps in, when failure stings, when you're exhausted, uninspired, discouraged. You don't feel like meditating, but you sit. You don't feel like training, but you move. You don't feel like journaling, but you write. You don't feel like facing the truth, but you stay. This repeated choice to stay the course again and again rewires your nervous system. It replaces chaos with inner order, and it's not just about consistency in grand practices. It's about how you carry yourself in every moment. Do you speak with integrity even when no one's watching? Do you treat people with respect even when they frustrate you? Do you choose patience when anger would be easier? These small acts of consistency build internal alignment, and alignment is what gives birth to peace. Most people collapse in chaos because they never built rhythm during calm. They trained only when life allowed. They were consistent only when it felt good. But a true practitioner builds discipline before the storm hits. They train in peacetime so they can respond in war. Their consistency becomes their armor. It becomes muscle memory. It becomes who they are. When you are consistent in chaos, you become your own anchor. You don't depend on others to hold you steady. You don't seek external permission to keep going. You trust your inner compass more than the opinions of the world. You act from purpose, not popularity. From vision, not emotion. That's when your energy becomes contagious. That's when you lead by example, not by words but by embodiment. There will be days when everything feels meaningless, when you feel unseen, unheard, and unsure. And it's on those days that your consistency is most tested. Will you let temporary emotion destroy permanent progress? Or will you choose to keep going? Not because it's easy, but because it's right. If you keep going, you win. Not because the external world rewards you immediately, but because you grow into someone who cannot be moved. Think of nature. A tree does not stop growing because of a storm. The sun does not stop rising because the clouds cover it. Rivers do not stop flowing because of obstacles. They adapt, adjust, continue. In the same way, you must find your rhythm, and then you must protect it. You must trust that your daily actions, however small, are creating a force that compounds beyond what you can immediately see. You will be tempted to stop, to take breaks that become habits, to listen to the seductive voice that says, "Skip today, it won't matter." But every skipped moment is a vote against your future self. Every compromise is a slow unraveling of identity. This doesn't mean you can't rest, but even your rest must be intentional. Consistency does not mean rigidity. It means commitment. Even when your methods adapt, your purpose stays steady. Over time, you will begin to feel the power of this practice. Chaos may still arrive, but it won't own you. You may still feel pain, but you won't drown in it. You may still fall, but you will rise faster, stronger, more conscious. Consistency gives you resilience. It teaches you that you are not a product of your environment. You are a creator of your experience. Your consistent actions, repeated day after day, shape the lens through which you see the world. They define your emotional responses. They strengthen your mental clarity. They build emotional control. This is not about hustling endlessly. It is about intentional repetition of the things that anchor your identity: mindfulness, movement, reflection, self-honesty, service, presence. In time, the chaos becomes less threatening. You begin to see it not as a disruption, but as training ground. Every disruption becomes a test of your practice. Every unexpected turn becomes a mirror, and you start to ask not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "How can I stay aligned through this?" This question reframes your entire life. You stop waiting for perfect conditions, you stop chasing motivation, you stop needing validation, you simply do the work with grace, with patience, with fire in your heart and stillness in your step. That's the quiet confidence of a disciplined soul. That's what makes you untouchable, not because life stops testing you, but because you've learned how to respond, no matter what. And that is the ultimate strength. Not brute force, not perfection, but quiet, steady consistency. Especially when everything around you falls apart. When others fold, you hold. When others panic, you breathe. When others quit, you continue. That is not just strength, that is self-mastery in its purest form.